My name is Michael Sutton. I'm the co-owner of Feed and Folly.
I'm Brandon. And I'm Elliot, and we're Atlas the restaurant.
My name is Matthew, and this building here, it wouldn't exist.
And we wouldn't be here.
We would not exist in this space if Fayetteville had parking minimums.
In 2015, Fayetteville, Arkansas was the first city in the United States to get rid of parking minimums. So I'm headed there right now to talk to some of the people who faced this question head on. What happens when a city recognizes the value of its precious downtown space? Fayetteville's complicated. This isn't a tourism ad, nor is it a scathing criticism. This is a snapshot of hard-fought progress. But only Fayetteville gets to decide whether that progress is toward a thriving future city, or if it was just a blip. Fayetteville is the second largest city in Arkansas and is part of a string of cities in the northwest corner, including Bentonville, Springdale, and Rogers. It sits within the Ozark Mountains and it's home to the University of Arkansas, so it's well educated, it's got a thriving outdoor culture, as well as a growing restaurant scene. Just 3 reasons why this place is really becoming popular.
You know, when my parents moved me here when I was 1 year old, there was a population of like 35,000 people, and now we're up to almost 100,000. So it's like, you know, it's tripled in my lifetime.
You know, so I think this question of how communities grow and how they accept the fact that they have to change as they accommodate that is really important, and what we struggled with a lot, what I struggled a lot with on the city council.
I'm going to pause here because Matthew is not giving himself enough credit. The city council that he served on in 2015 showed that Fayetteville was able to change and adapt as it grew by seeking to make it easier to fill vacant historic downtown buildings, some of which sat empty for decades because of red tape imposed by previous parking codes. So we'll get into the actual codes later, but to make it simple, getting rid of parking mandates doesn't mean getting rid of parking. It just means that businesses, developers, and homeowners aren't arbitrarily deciding based on codes how many parking spots that they need. The market decides.
At time and again, city planners would meet with residents and potential business owners who had a vision for a piece of property or a building that was ultimately terminated or unable to be implemented because of our parking standards.
So honestly, this building had been empty for like 20 years before we, kind of moved into it. And this was a building that I used to drive by on my way to high school every single day and be like, man, that would be a cool business. Yeah, it was just so vacant for so long. And that's why, because of the parking restrictions there, that's why no one moved into it.
So this building, this original concept started out as we were going to do 12 residential apartments. It was just going to be a straight residential project. But looking around on the library is close, the bike trail is right next door, there's a couple of restaurants. There was something that could happen here. We wanted to do more. So right away we started trying to find commercial tenants, and that was really only possible. These businesses wouldn't be here if we had the parking minimums. It just would have been illegal.
As you can see, parking minimums aren't harmless. They actively undermine the ability of entrepreneurs to open businesses and for cities to adapt. So let's check out some examples of cities that do require commercial parking minimums. Texarkana, which is a city on the border of, you guessed it, Texas and Arkansas, requires commercial parking minimums. Fayetteville, as we know now, does not. In order to open a restaurant in downtown Texarkana, you would need 1 off-street parking spot for every 3 seats under the maximum seating arrangement. If you wanted to open a medical or dental clinic and office, you would need 7 spaces per doctor or dentist. Okay, well, if that's the case, do they not have those things? Well, they do. It's just that now downtown looks like this. Fayetteville had similar parking minimums, one of which was that if you wanted to open a restaurant, you needed to have 1 parking space per 100 square feet. Using rough estimates from satellite imagery, under these codes, Atlas the restaurant would have required 37 parking spots to operate. Feed and Folly would have needed at least 30.
In Fayetteville, we're really lucky. We have a city council that's really interested in making progress and is willing to admit when things aren't doing what we expected them to do. And parking minimums were one of those things.
There is a community acceptance that, by and large, efforts to modify our codes have impacts on the built environment And what we're trying to do is ultimately improve that.
Jonathan's current job, as well as Matthew's time serving the city from 2008 to 2021, was a continuation of the hard work and grand dreams of Fayetteville's 2004 master plan. This was no little plan. It laid a vision for the city that Fayetteville's public servants have fought hard to maintain. I mean, look at some of these key principles. They were envisioning a walkable environment, downtown living, efficient parking, less regulation, and more cultural experiences. One of the easiest ways to make grand plans like this a reality is by taking the small step of removing parking minimums. It makes room for a more productive downtown. It allows for more local small businesses to make a bet on their town's success. It removes the uncomfortable and ugly walk through parking lots, and it opens up space for more special places. I don't want to give you false hope. This is a small step, but it's often a difficult one, especially in a place like Fayetteville, where a lot of the population growth is happening on the fringes of town, where it's zoned exclusively for single-family homes. While plenty of students and citizens living near the downtown core have the freedom to walk, bike, take the bus, and drive if they want to, there are tens of thousands of people in the area whose only real convenient option is to drive. For these people, and for many opponents of removing parking minimums, it's hard to imagine driving downtown and not having ample parking directly in front of their end destination. This has caused some major issues with the city trying to renovate a surface parking lot on 7th and Dixon, one of the busiest places in town.
So we're at the West Avenue parking lot in the city of Fayetteville. It's downtown parking lot. It's about 300 spaces. It's probably the single most valuable piece of property in all the community due to its location. It's about a 5-minute walk from the University of Arkansas campus, where there's 30,000 or so undergrad students, and it's at the top end of our Main Street district, our entertainment district. So it's the prime piece of land, which is why several decades ago, city leaders thought it was the best place for a parking lot. And this is the Upper Ramble, and what's been designed for this parking lot is a redevelopment into a park. It's a park with that's meant to be a plaza. So it's supposed to have edges, it's supposed to have a center, it's supposed to be a gathering place. There's a building on the north side that's planned as a food hall, and on the south side, a hotel has been proposed. Both of those buildings and the uses that are proposed for them would not be possible at all if the minimum parking requirements were still enforced. For instance, one of the main tactics that's going to make the hotel viable is that they're going to use valet parking, right? Which is really common in cities and is also often not recognized as a way to meet parking needs.
I think that, and despite the cost, putting that parking somewhere else affords the opportunity to do something dynamic and unique in this area and return it to contributing property, whether it's in regards to the civic vitality or a much more fiscal orientation, actually contributing to property and sales tax.
If this development is taken to completion, that would mean a huge tax value increase for the property, which means more revenue for the city of Fayetteville, as opposed to the minimal tax value per acre of a surface parking lot. Jonathan is touching on a really important idea here, the crux of this video. What happens when a city recognizes the value of its precious downtown space? Who or what does it prioritize? For years, the answer was simple. It was patrons of the Walton Arts Center who wanted to show up 30 minutes before a show on a weekend and park right in front of the theater.
You know, I think the most important thing we do is to create a place that people want to come to. And anytime you have a parking problem, that's a great problem to have, because that means more people want to be there and participate in that space. Fayetteville recently built another parking deck right behind the Walton Arts Center, and it was supposed to specifically serve the theaters. And it's not operating at full capacity on a regular basis.
They do have a clientele who tends to be older than the average population, and so there's a concern about making sure that they're adequately accommodated in reaching events. And so anything that pushes parking further away has the perception of inconveniencing those people and maybe reducing their willingness to patronize the arts center.
So Jonathan said this super tactfully, but I have to show you this. People are concerned about proximal parking, and look at how close the parking garage is to the lot that it's replacing.
downtown should be a park once district and not a, let's go park at this restaurant and then let's move our car to the theater and then we have to drive to this bar we want to go to. That's ridiculous. It doesn't work for downtown.
The built environment of most North American places, and Fayetteville is not exempt from this, means that people are going to drive. And if a city doesn't plan for this, then it's missing an opportunity to have a successful downtown. Luckily, in 2017, Fayetteville did the research. It conducted a parking study. They found that even on the busiest weekend evenings, less than 4,000 of the 9,000 spots were full. The busiest spots, go figure, are right on Dixon Street. So why not valet? Why not park a few blocks down and walk? It's because it's a PR issue. This is why Strong Towns exists. We're here as a media advocacy organization so that your town doesn't have to spend that $10 million. Fayetteville, I'm sorry that we didn't make this video earlier.
We capitulated and we said, okay, we'll build you another parking deck first. Because as much as people like the idea of, they like the big ideas of a cultural arts corridor, public transit, affordable housing, but they're very uncomfortable with the specific strategies and decisions it takes to actually achieve those goals.
Like I said from the start, Fayetteville is not a guaranteed success story.
Fayetteville really wants to be the best version of itself. It has a lot of pride, but if I was making a prediction, I think it's going to happen a lot slower than people want it to happen, and a lot slower than people who fear the change expect it to happen.
I live in Chicago, a city that does so much right, but I still feel this way too. The restaurants that we highlighted are standing on the shoulders of the people who dreamed that Block Avenue would one day be a complete connection to Dixon Street. While this may have happened slower than hoped, it's happening. The dream in 2004 that there would be a safe and walkable corridor with thriving businesses and people living downtown, it's happening. To a lot of us, and I feel this way often, it's happening too slowly. I think it's important to lean into this frustration with North American places, but we can't sit there and stay complacent.
Everything that governs the way we build, everything that governs the way our communities grow, all the rules, all the conventions, they're all made up. We didn't inherit them. They're not natural laws. We invented them. We adopted them by consensus. And consensus is managed by the people who are in the room when the decisions are made. You don't have to be pre-qualified. You don't have to be the expert. But you do have to be someone who asserts the future you want.
So, is that you?
Sure. Well, when I was growing up, I didn't really care much about politics, and then I moved to Fayetteville, and it's still a few years before I really cared very much about politics, but I just started noticing things around me because I walked around the city a lot. I still walk around the city a lot, and when you walk around a place, you notice a lot more than when you're just trying to get from point A to point B. And I started noticing the people, and I started noticing the surroundings, and I started thinking about how things might be able to be a little bit better. Not that they were bad, I think we have it very good in Fayetteville, but I just started to notice on those walks certain things that could be improved. I got kind of frustrated with how long it took government to recognize some of the things that were important to me, and so at that point I just decided, well, maybe I should give it a shot and try to be in government where I can help make the decisions, and so that's how I got started in it.
When people ask me about the future of Fayetteville, one of the first things I think of is that this community turns 200 in 2028. And I always wonder, what do we want to be when we're 200 years old? What does this community really want for itself when it turns 201?
What do you want your town to look like? These things unfortunately happen slower than we want them to. But 20 years ago was the best time to get rid of parking minimums, and Fayetteville got rid of theirs in 2015. Maybe it's time that your town does it now. If you want more information about how to practically do this, we did a webinar that I'm going to leave for you that you might consider watching. Also, if you want your town to be a stronger place, you might consider learning more about local politics. It's important that our ideas are in the rooms where these decisions are made. If you want to be better equipped to have these conversations and you want to team up with people in your community who are already working to see progress happen, join a local conversation. Consider becoming a member and subscribe so that you can stay up to date on the success stories of people improving their places. Keep doing what you can to make your town a stronger place, and we will see you next time.